Welcome to Basketball Cinema, where we revisit the most important and iconic games in NBA history. I'm Jay Canada, and today we're looking at Game 4 of the 1986 NBA Finals between the Boston Celtics and Houston Rockets. The NBA in the 1980s was largely defined by two franchises, and it's not really a mystery, the LA Lakers and Boston Celtics. If you parse the text of NBA history, the dominance from the two teams during the decade is actually insane. Combined, the Lakers and Celtics won 8 of 10 championships in the 80s, as well they accounted for 6 of the 10 regular season MVP winners. They also met each other head-to-head in the finals on 3 separate occasions. One of those battles came in 1985 and saw the Lakers clinch the title in 6 games, anchored by 37-year-old finals MVP Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. If there was a missing component to the mixture that Casey Jones, Jan Volk, and Red Auerbach had concocted in Boston, maybe it was the motivation gained from losing to their hated rivals. Because the 1986 Boston Celtics season is unquestionably one of the greatest single-season showings that we've ever seen. Their 67-15 record was the best in the NBA by a 5-win margin, and they went an unbelievable 50-1 on their home floor, including playoff results. 50-1! And statistically were the NBA's best defensive team, as well the most efficient three-point shooting team. Allow me to quickly rattle off the key pieces on this Celtics team, alright? Okay, so Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson, Bill Walton, and what do all these dudes have in common? They're all future Hall of Famers. Oh wow, great job. My boy's wicked smart. Where the current NBA game has put a premium on small ball, the Houston Rockets playing 6'5" PJ Tucker at center, for example, the 86 Celtics took the opposite approach, opting simply to outsize their competition at every turn. The team had been led and continued to be led by Larry Bird, 6'9", Kevin McHale, 6'10", and Robert Parrish, 7'1". And prior to the 86 season, the team added former league MVP Bill Walton, who stood at 6'11". Yeah, that's a lot of tall dudes. But of course the Celts were made up of much more than just their bigs, as Hall of Famer Dennis Johnson and current Celtics GM Danny Ainge held down the backcourt with flair. Johnson averaged over 50 in a game while being named to the all-defensive second team, while Ainge averaged 11 a game during the regular season on 50, 36, 90 shooting splits. While I'm at it, in case you're not convinced on the Celtics yet, here's their other individual accolades from the season. Larry Bird, MVP All-NBA First Team. Kevin McHale, All-Defensive First Team. Bill Walton, 6th Man of the Year. How you like them apples? Okay, so yeah, on paper, during the regular season, the Celtics looked like arguably the greatest team ever assembled, but what about the playoffs? Well, the Celts treated each opponent in the playoffs like the members of a rival crew that had harassed someone they loved. They swept young Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls despite Mike's infamous 63-point game. They beat Dominique and the Hawks in 5 games. Terry Cummings and the Bucks were obviously swept aside, and just like that, without ever asking any questions about it, the Celtics were cruising into the NBA Finals. Whose car we gonna take? Okay, I promise that's the last Boston movie reference of this video. Probably. We'll see. Waiting for the Celtics, though, was a young upstart Houston Rockets team who had battled their way through the Western Conference playoffs, led by 23-year-old Hakeem Olajuwon. Ever heard of him? The Rockets were a middle-of-the-pack defensive team in the regular season, had just a lone All-NBA member in Hakeem, and had no track record of success with this core to speak of at that time. The history, though, just didn't matter, as in just his 2nd season, Hakeem was already turning heads.
Hakeem is, it's not enough words in the language to describe what he can do.
Hakeem Olajuwon is singularly the most incredible athlete I've ever witnessed, read about, and seen in person.
And in the West Finals against Kareem and the Lakers, Hakeem dropped 31 and 11 a game with 4 blocks too. Sheesh. If anyone was about to disrupt the 86 Celtics Tea Party, it was going to be Hakeem. The Celtics did take control of the series early, however, taking games 1 and 2 by a combined 34 points, but the Rockets answered back with a dramatic 2-point win in Game 3. Alongside fellow Giant Ralph Sampson, would Hakeem Olajuwon and the Rockets have enough firepower to keep up with those mighty Celtics, maybe tie the series up? Let's return to 1980s Houston and find out. Just prior to tip-off, thanks to CBS, we got a history lesson on the economic status of Houston in 1986.
A year ago, there were 640 rigs pumping oil in this state. That's down to 219. The price of crude, $14 a barrel. Unemployment, a way of life for the men who toiled in those fields. It now stands at 9% in this city.
Thanks a lot, Brent Musburger. That was extremely necessary. A couple legends were on the broadcast of this game in a young Dick Stockton, as well former Celtics legend Tom Heinsohn, who passed away in late 2020. Rest in peace. In the pregame, our guy Dick mentioned a comment that Larry Bird had made after the Rockets win in Game 3.
You know, Larry Bird said that the Rockets were lucky to win Sunday's Game 3, and he says if the Celtics win tonight, he says there's no way the Celtics will not win the World Championship.
Quite the ego on this Bird character, I'll tell you. In Larry's defense, however, he had just won his 3rd MVP in a row, and over that 3-year stretch had posted 26 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists per game on just shy of 50, 40, 90 shooting splits. So I guess he did have every right to be cocky. Danny Ainge pointed out Bird's confidence as being the trait that set him apart as a basketball player.
The thing that always stands out to me about Larry was his unwavering confidence. I mean, he had a level of confidence that was far superior to the rest of us. And I think that we were all very confident people.
Let's see if that trademark Bird confidence and follow through was on display in Game 4. I love 80s basketball so much, man. Larry Bird sagged off Robert Reed, who converted the first hoop of the game from about 17 feet out. You could probably step up a bit higher there, Lair. The man of the moment, though, answered back quickly with a very beautiful post fade from the left block. I should have never jokingly slandered the man. I'm sorry, Lair. Hakeem's first attempt was well off, but 7'4" human skyscraper Ralph Sampson secured the O-board, then eventually finished with, man, I don't even know what that was, but it worked. I mentioned Hakeem Olajuwon was only 23 years old in leading this Rockets team to the finals. It was only his 2nd NBA season and he was dominant in the playoffs. On back-to-back possessions, he swatted Kevin McHale, then stripped Dennis Johnson on his run to the rim. And we start to see how Hakeem would eventually be the all-time NBA leader in block shots. Larry's game actually did fairly resemble the current game, as his 2nd hoop of the game came off another mid-range J, this time a comfortable pull-up moving left. Quick hands once again from Hakeem on the defensive end, and now we see how he would eventually be top 10 all-time in steals too. And his first points of the game came after galloping up the court and finishing strong in Robert Parrish's grill. Robert Reed had a very strong start for the Rockets, giving them an early 3-point lead with a jumper over Danny Ainge. Oh man, look at this. Look at this, y'all. For those of us who completely missed the 1980s, I mean, we missed a lot. Just outstanding graphics work by CBS to break down the Celtics defense on Hakeem. The Rockets could have used some of that animatronic post defense, to be honest, as a quick entry feed from Bird set up an easy deuce from McHale. Kevin had an early 7 points. After another McHale hoop on the putback, the Celtics took a 4-point lead as Robert Parrish finished off a perfectly executed 3-on-1 break. While it seemed a bit odd to me to see big Robert Parrish excelling in this fast break game, this was the norm for the Bird, McHale, Parrish-led Celtics.
Now, one thing that the 3 of us had going for us, we could all shoot the basketball. We was all great finishers. Larry was able to create a lot of offense for Kevin and myself, but we got a lot of points.
Larry was certainly facilitating in the finals. He'd go on to average a shade under 10 assists a game in the series. And of course, he could do much more than just drop dimes like a bank teller with a bad hand, as he smacked another deep jumper right in Hakeem's face. But on the other end,
Loose ball, Sampson will get an easy bucket and a foul.
Okay, Dick Stockton, I need just a little bit more energy than that. That was kind of an insane poster from Ralph Sampson, set up by another disruptive play made by Hakeem. Kevin McHale had 13 first quarter points, including a high arching 10-foot jumper. Robert Reed had an answer on the other end, 2 of his 8 first quarter points, and the quarter came to a close tied at 30 after Larry Bird hit yet another mid-range jumper. Great stuff, Lair. Great stuff. As the second quarter got underway, Bill Walton missed his first attempt of the game, although weirdly enough, the box score of this game says Billy Dub was 5 for 5 on the game. I smell a conspiracy. Hakeem doing Hakeem things with a spin inside got credited for 2 off the Walton goaltend. Another Olajuwon special with an aggressive up and under dunk to give Houston a 2-point lead. I've got to point out here briefly for my fellow young people, look at the spacing of the 1980s NBA. Hakeem ducks in for a post-up not 5 feet away from Ralph Sampson, who was also posting up, as the 2 wing players for Houston stand inside the 3-point line. I mean, it's like they didn't want to get open. Hey, there's some spacing. Robert Reed for 3! Oh man, he bricked. I mean, at least he gave it a shot, literally. In case you were unaware, Andrew Wiggins' dad Mitchell played in the NBA. I know, right? He wasn't good in this game, shot just 3 for 12 from the field. Thankfully, Hakeem had his back with a wild follow-up. Next time we see Andrew shoot 25% from the field in the game, we'll just call it an homage to his pops. Another tough play for the elder Wiggins, an attempted save went right into the hands of Bill Walton, who converted the layup. Let's take a moment to discuss Bill Walton actually. He was an early star in the NBA, joining the Portland Trailblazers in 1974. He'd go on to win an MVP, a championship, a Finals MVP award. But after missing 3 of 4 seasons during his prime due to repeated foot injuries, he was quickly on his way to playing himself out of the league. But after getting back to reasonable health in 1985 with the Clippers, he made a key decision for his career.
It finally dawned on me that it wasn't happening for me any longer, and I had to move on from my current circumstances with the Clippers and get on a much better team and in a much better situation and franchise.
The Celtics took a chance in bringing in Walton. In fact, he wasn't cleared by Boston doctors prior to signing. Instead, they simply took Bill's word that he was healthy. Walton would average about 8.7 rebounds a game for the 86 Celtics off the bench, but the biggest accomplishment, according to Larry Bird, was Bill staying healthy.
Every game was a special game because we didn't know he was going to be broke down the next game. But that year he played 80 games and we won a lot of them. Won a lot of them because of him.
Despite the relatively mundane stats, 8.7 rebounds a game, Bill Walton did win 6th Man of the Year and was a valuable contributor for the Celtics in the playoffs too. I'll shout out the late great Dennis Johnson for the first time, as he fought inside for 2 of his 22 points on the night, giving Boston a mid-second quarter 1-point lead. With Hakeem on the bench, Ralph Sampson had some more room to operate with a tough and-one finish. He wasn't done either. Another and-one. Man, Ralph Sampson was a bad man back in the day. The Celtics went to their cheat code lineup though, as Larry ducked in for an easy 2. He was running at shooting guard with Parrish, McHale, and Walton in the front court. No, seriously, that's some cheese. But defensively, the Celtics still weren't great. Hakeem this time with an and-one finish, Sampson a hook shot to give him 21 first-half points, and at the halftime break, Houston had a 1-point lead. Let's see if the average NBA coach was funnier in the 80s than they are now.
Well, I'm happy with some things and I'm unhappy with others. So unless I inherited $1 million while I was in there, I'm not any happier now than I was when the game started.
Oh my word, what a perfect amount of deadpanned attitude from the Rockets head coach. You just love to see it. You also love to see how simple Larry Bird made the game look. I mean, that's a warm-up mid-range jumper for my guy, and this is the NBA Finals. Let's see some defense, Houston. Bird was instantly double-teaming Hakeem on his post touches, this time creating a turnover which led to a Danny Ainge fast break. Mitchell Wiggins with a dive in for 2, but that was answered quickly by Ainge on a pull-up. He had 6 third-quarter points. McHale an easy finish. Oh, snap! Never mind. Ralph Sampson with a monster block. My apologies, good sir. Hakeem had 14 boards on the game and was all over the offensive glass, cleaning up a miss to give him 16 points thus far in Game 4. Boston led 78-74 in the third quarter, when Larry Bird once again with ease maneuvered out of a double team to set the table for Dennis Johnson. Sampson brought the game back within 4 on another post hook over McHale, but Ralph had just 4 points total in the second half after his huge first. Also bad news for the Rockets, Hakeem picked up his 4th foul and yeah, the Rockets brought in some tall white dude named Jim to replace him. Not great. The final stretch in the third once again saw Robert Parrish in transition for some reason with an easy finish. He then put Boston up 3 with a rainbow fadeaway from the middle of the paint. I've emphasized already just how loaded this Celtics team was, but watching all 3 of Parrish, McHale, and Larry putting in work in this game, it's magic. And a big part of what made this big 3 work was the unselfish attitude of the contributors.
But it's not a sacrifice, it's just that if Robert had it going, which he did many nights, he just got the ball. If Robert and Larry had it going, I just knew I wasn't going to get as many shots. No big deal. You know, the next night might be my night. We got ours. A
combined 60 points from the lads in Game 4, with each man getting theirs. An acrobatic finish inside from Rodney McRae, however, brought the Rockets to within a single point, 86-85 Celtics heading into the fourth. To beat the shot clock buzzer, Robert Reed missed his 3rd three-point attempt of the game, looking like the 2018 Rockets out there with all these bricks. But Jim Halpert Peterson with some nice work on the boards to set up another McRae lay-in. And look at Jim Peterson. Let's go with a mid-range jumper. I have a new favorite player. It's over. Robert Reed was a constant for the Rockets offense all game, converting another midi to give them a 1-point lead, still with Hakeem riding pine by the way. The Celtics with a response to finally satiate my modern NBA cravings.
3 seconds on the shot clock. Dennis Johnson for 3, and a big basket at the 24-second buzzer by Dennis Johnson to give the Celtics a 2-point lead.
No, Dick Stockton. I think you meant BAM! Bang! As mentioned, Ralph Sampson struggled in the second half, but he tied things up at 93 with his 25th and final point of the game. With a shade under 8 minutes remaining, Hakeem re-entered the game for Houston, but Dennis Johnson dropped in a sick turnaround J to give Boston a 2-point lead. The Rockets locked in defensively though, forcing a turnover on the entry pass to Larry Bird. Unfortunately, Sampson's struggles continued as Houston couldn't capitalize. But after more battling on both sides, we once again caught a glimpse of the greatness that was Hakeem Olajuwon.
Will the Rockets even the series, or does Boston go up 3-1? Hakeem fall away. Gives the Rockets the lead.
Mikhail with an insane answer though, simply flipping one up and in over 7-4 Ralph Sampson, and you know what? I'll use the term insane again. Look at Hakeem Olajuwon, man, spinning out of a double team without traveling into another fierce finish at the rim. With under 4 minutes left and a chance to grab a 2-possession lead, Hakeem finally missed a tough jumper. Robert Reed on their next possession was also off on a jumper, some tough missed opportunities for the young Houston squad. And Dennis Johnson was able to get to the free throw line where he tied the game up at 101. Our guy Mitchell Wiggins with some irrational confidence in the clutch and a third straight empty possession for the Rockets. Somehow Larry Legend had only 4 points thus far in the second half, but you knew he'd have a say in the game down the stretch.
Walton, who's been there before. Bird for 3, hits, and the Celtics.
Once again, Dick, it's pronounced bang! The second 3-point make of the game for Boston to give them a 3-point lead. A super casual clutch shot from the hick from French Lick. One final 3-point brick from Robert Reed in this game, but a pivotal tip-in by Rodney McRae to bring the Rockets back within 1. Celtics head coach Casey Jones had made the bold decision moments earlier to put Bill Walton back in the game in favor of Robert Parrish. A decision that, well, paid off in short order.
Johnson against Wiggins, going in strong. Walton gets the rebound and gets the basket. Bill Walton may have gotten the most important basket after a rebound since he joined the Celtics this year.
Billy taking a dub to re-extend the Celtics lead to 3. Back with possession, Hakeem's magic had run out, misfiring as he attempted to shoot out of a triple team. Hakeem then failed to properly seal off Kevin McHale, who made a great defensive play with 48 seconds remaining to get Boston possession once again. Larry was off on what could have been a dagger, but remember, down 3 points wasn't a good spot to be in during this era since they didn't shoot threes. And well, we never got a chance to see if the Rockets could make a miracle 3 because the second half struggles for Ralph Sampson compounded. Another supreme defensive play by Kevin McHale to force a steal, and that was all she wrote for Houston in Game 4 of the 1986 NBA Finals. For the second video in a row here on Basketball Cinema, I feel I should make an apology to Rockets fans as Houston would eventually bow out to the Celtics in 6 games. At least they put up a legitimate fight. The Celtics have won 17 championships in their franchise history, but there's no questioning how impactful the victory in 1986 was. Boston would go without a chip for the next 21 seasons before winning again in 2008. After the Bill Russell era had passed, Celtics fans spent 2 decades yearning for the Bird McHale Parrish era to come back after it had suddenly been cut short. Despite still being in what should have been his athletic prime, Larry Bird would play just 6 seasons longer in his career after 86 and managed only about 2 more years of high-level excellent play before his back gave out once and for all. Parrish and McHale enjoyed a handful more years of productive play alongside Bird, but after losing to the Lakers in 1987, were never able to reach the summit again as a powerhouse trio. As touched on many times, however, the 86 Celtics did boast 5 Hall of Fame players and have correctly been regarded as one of the greatest teams ever assembled, regardless of how the ensuing seasons played out. Prior to Kevin Durant joining Golden State Warriors, in fact, the general consensus was that either these Celtics or the 96 Chicago Bulls were the GOAT team. Bill Simmons called the 86 Celtics the greatest team ever back in 2009, summarizing their on-court dominance in an accurate way. The Celtics were basically announcing, our front line is going to notch 75 points and 33 rebounds, protect the rim, shoot 50 plus from the field, and hit wide open shooters and cutters all night. You will be foolish to double team any of them, and you will not get a break from them for 4 quarters. Good luck. It was clearly a different game in 1986, but the Celtics really did have the team concept of basketball figured out like no other team in history ever has. On the other side, while it was a coronation of the Celtics' greatness in 1986, it was a stepping stone for the Houston Rockets. In just his second NBA season, Hakeem Olajuwon had established himself as an absolute force in the league and would only grow from that point, eventually becoming the league MVP and leading the Rockets to a pair of titles in 94 and 95. You could already see the God-given abilities that made Hakeem so special shining through in 1986, and there's no denying his experience battling the greatest collection of big men on one team in NBA history only served to help his career in the long run. Unfortunately, the duo of Hakeem and Ralph Sampson, which had so much promise, fell by the wayside, as Ralph was traded to Golden State in 1987. Sampson unfortunately never reached his full potential that was apparent following his first handful of seasons in the NBA, but was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2012 nonetheless. Also, Ralph did have an indirect impact on the Rockets championship teams of the future. Okay, just follow along with me for a second. He was traded for a package including Joe Barry Carroll. Joe Barry Carroll was then traded to the Nets for a package including some dude named Tim McCormick. Tim McCormick was then part of a trade package which netted the Rockets a player by the name of Kenny the Jet Smith. So basically, Ralph Sampson is the reason the Rockets won a pair of championships, and the reason we have Inside the NBA. For each game covered on Basketball Cinema, I'll be giving out 3 awards, beginning with the Clint Hawkeye Barton Award for Most Underrated Performer.
I don't care.
Which goes to Bill Walton. I talked at length about Walton earlier in this video, and his reclamation story going from MVP to 6th man is honestly just great. While Bird, Parrish, McHale, and Dennis Johnson all got theirs in Game 4, it was Billy Walton who came through with the biggest play of the game on the O-board and putback late in the 4th. He also shot 5 for 5 according to the box score, even though we all witnessed him missing one. The Rick Dalton Award for Most Recognizable Moment goes to young Hakeem Olajuwon. We all know the dominant force that Hakeem would grow into later in his career, and we all know his signature dream shake and post-move prowess. But for a second-year player to have this refined a game, and for him to have been whipping out those crafty spins so early in his career, I mean, the dream shake is iconic, and the early versions of it were in beta testing here in 1986. And finally, the Mark Jackson, with all due respect, Award for Weirdest Moment in this game goes to this pregame segment with Brent Musburger on CBS.
No one works harder at improving his game than that phenom known as Larry Bird. He was out early today, and at one point he was able to make 13 consecutive shots warming up.
First of all, Brent, it's pronounced phenom, okay? What did this man even say? Also, and with all due respect to Larry Legend, bragging that Larry hit 13 mid-ranges in a row in warm-up is slightly less impressive after seeing Steph Curry hit 105 threes in a row a while back. 105 threes in a row? And that's it. The Boston Celtics beat the Houston Rockets 106-103 in Game 4 of the NBA Finals on June 3rd, 1986. A team widely recognized as one of the greatest ever assembled was able to overtake Hakeem Olajuwon, the early version of an all-time great player. If you enjoyed this episode of the show, please consider dropping a like down below, and if you can see yourself watching a few more of these in the future, I'd suggest hitting that subscribe button as well. Also, leave me a comment down below on literally anything from this video, please. Next week, we'll be taking a look at one of the most overlooked and fundamentally sound NBA superstars of all time. But until then, I'm Jay Canada, and this has been Basketball Cinema. And statistically, we're one of the NBA's best in the playoffs, like members of a rival crew that with floor had averaged 26, 10, and 7 on and we would start to see how, I've already emphasized how, the second 3-point make of the game for Boston to give them a 3-point late, oh my gosh.